On one level, manifesting is an incredibly easy process. You just decide what you want and trust that it's going to happen. But not everyone feels the same way. Not everyone feels that this is an easy thing to do. It may be simple, but it's not necessarily easy, at least for most folks. What's easy for one person is not always easy for someone else. For someone who is comfortable in the kitchen, it might be easy to go in and fix a meal for 20 people. It might be easy for someone else to pick up a guitar and pluck out a song. It might be easy for someone to get up in front of a room full of people and deliver a speech. When you're used to something, it becomes easier and easier. And that's the primary thing that I want to talk about in this video. How can we make the process of manifesting our desires an easy one? How can we reach that point where we can just simply decide what we want and trust that it's going to happen? Because for most of us, that's anything but easy. It may be simple, but not always easy. And here, I think, is where most people who communicate that, oh yeah, it's easy, you just do this or you just do that. I think what they tend to forget is that just because there's only a few steps involved doesn't mean that those steps are necessarily easy for most people to do. I mean, let's look at probably the most extreme example there ever is. It would be simple to just simply sit down and do absolutely nothing for an entire hour because there's no effort involved. And yet, I think most people today would find that incredibly difficult to do, to just sit and do absolutely nothing for an entire hour. Don't read, don't talk on the phone, don't browse the internet, don't watch what's going on around you, to just sit and do nothing for an entire hour. Seems like it would be an incredibly easy thing to do. But if you've ever tried it, especially if you're not used to it, and what you're actually used to is doing, moving from one thing to another all day long, if that's what you're used to, sitting down for an hour and doing absolutely nothing is an incredibly difficult thing to do, even though there's literally nothing involved. So the idea of making a process easy, whether it's the process of manifesting or the process of anything else, it really boils down to practice, spending time doing it, working with it over and over and over again until it becomes easy. Now, with manifesting, there are a variety of factors that go into it. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, you can nail it down to just 2 steps. Decide what you want, trust that it's going to happen. It's the simplest form of manifesting ever, and yet not always the easiest. How can you decide on one thing to manifest when you have so many choices available to you? And how do you decide to focus on one thing and stay focused on it long enough for it to manifest? And how long does it take for it to manifest while you are focusing on it, or after you have focused on it for a sufficient period of time? What is a sufficient period of time? Well, that gets into the faith part of it. Decide what you want, trust that it's going to happen. Trust is an element of faith. You can say trusting, having confidence in, having faith in, having a belief about. All of these things are kind of talking about the same basic idea. To trust, believe, expect, anticipate a positive outcome. And it would be incredibly easy for me to say that, well, you just make the decision and stick with it. But as I experienced myself when I was first learning all this, making that decision and trusting that it's going to happen when it's never happened before, yeah, that's really not easy. It may be simple, but it's not always easy. So here again, going back to what I was saying, there are a variety of things that we can do to help exercise our ability to stick with one thing and hold to that idea long enough for it to manifest. And how long do you hold to an idea for it to manifest? It depends on the strength of your faith. If you have an incredibly strong level of faith that you know beyond any shadow of a doubt that this process works and you can make it work, and you know that just by deciding and setting that intention for something to manifest is all you actually need, 10 seconds is more than enough. In fact, 2 seconds is probably enough, as long as you have that level of faith. So how do you get that faith? That was the big question that drove me over and over and over again, because as a young child, going to Sunday school and hearing the stories of the Bible, that if you have enough faith, you can command this mountain to throw itself into the sea and it will be obeyed. How do you get that faith? Well, there are a couple tricks that you can do that will help you establish that level of faith. The first and most important trick to establishing that level of faith is a process I call faith anchoring. And it's basically a process of finding something that you already have faith in. Maybe you have faith in the ground beneath your feet. It is a reality of life, right? It is currently real. It is a truth of your existence. The sky above your head. You can look up and you can see the sky and maybe a few clouds and maybe a bird here and there. And it's like, yeah, this is real. This is a fact of my reality. Or maybe there's a rock on the ground that you can pick up and you can hold that rock and you know this is real. This is a reality. Or if you're sitting at a desk, you can put your hands on that desk and say, this is real. I have faith that this desk is here. Find something that you already have faith in. Notice that feeling of faith. Focus on that feeling of faith. Imagine that feeling of faith growing stronger and stronger and stronger in absolute truth, absolute reality, and notice how that feels. And by spending time focusing on that feeling of faith, you make it easier to bring up and call upon it at will at any time whenever you need it. Taking time to just simply experience faith, experience truth, reality, and knowingness that this is real, this is true, this is my reality. And then once you have established that feeling within yourself as strongly as you possibly can, this faith anchoring process that I just mentioned is just simply taking this feeling of faith and anchoring a new idea with it. That this thing that I want to manifest will in fact manifest because of this feeling of faith that I bring up over here and move over here to this new thing, and I bring the two together. I tie it onto this new idea as an anchor to a boat. It's not going to go anywhere. This idea is centered and focused within my reality, within my truth. Practice, 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 practice. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. And this is the core of manifesting. Decide what you want. Trust that it's going to happen. And if you need to, bring up that feeling of faith by thinking of things that are already a truth, a fact of your reality. And then shifting that faith to the new thing. Practice, practice, practice. You'll eventually get there. Manifesting is easy. All you have to do is decide what you want, trust that it's going to happen. And now you know the secret to that. So until next time, be blessed, my friend.